Today on Doomed! Crowdfunding and insurrection. Well, at least the fallout of one. On today's show, journalist Will Carless will join me to discuss his piece about how the pro-Trump mob that stormed the Capitol building on January 6th, 2021 in Washington, D.C., is now fundraising online for their legal bills and court cases. This piece has created quite the brouhaha online, but we're going to break it down for you and discuss what is going on with Will today. Now, before I go any further, let me just bring him up onto the screen. We'll bring both of us onto the screen so you could see us both. Here we go. Will Carless. He is a national correspondent for USA Today covering extremism. Will, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, Will, when I saw this piece, I thought it was great journalism, first of all. And it is something that I've seen covered before. There is a interesting trend going on where right-wing usually, right-wing personalities, people who've made a name for themselves in the right-wing online sphere or, on YouTube or on via podcasts, the right-wing influencers are basically using all sorts of fundraising platforms online to try to create an income for themselves. Demonetized on YouTube, can't make money from selling merch because their stores, they've been banned from having a store on platforms like Shopify, I guess. So they go to platforms where they can basically ask others to just give them money for what they do. So when I saw this piece, I was like, all right, this is interesting, but also not completely out of the ordinary. It fits right into that trend.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, this is sort of a subset of that in that we were specifically looking at people who, maybe let me backtrack for a second. So basically I always kind of consider this a tech story. Like that's why Jessica Gwynn, a talented, tech writer, is one of the co-bylines on it. I saw this as a tech story because what I had seen was that these payment processors and the crowdfunding sites had very clearly said, we're not okay with these people making money on our sites. And at the same time, I'm in these Telegram channels and monitoring these guys who are saying, hey, give me money over here. Give me money over here. Here's the way you can give me money. And it's like, well, okay, are they banned or are they not banned? Are they allowed to do this or are they not allowed to do this? And so that's how the kind of story started off, was just trying to figure out, okay, are these tech companies actually doing what they claim to be doing and knuckling down and clamping down on these people? Or are they just able to raise money whenever they want to, however they want to?
Right. So let's jump into this piece. So basically, we're looking at a number of people who had been arrested for their actions down in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol on January 6th. They're facing, some of them are facing pretty hefty, serious charges. And they obviously will have to get a lawyer or a whole legal team to defend them in court. And so they're going to these different fundraising platforms to raise this money. Now, what did you come across in terms of, well, first of all, I guess, who is raising this money? Are we talking about, just like Greg Smith, father of four, who is just a big Trump supporter who went down there because he heard the president was going to hold this last-minute rally and then found himself carried away as the crowd marched to the Capitol building? Or are we looking at people who are in, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, Three Percenters, groups that were involved in actually planning ways to commit harm to people in the Capitol?
I mean, your question's an interesting one because I think it kind of depends who you ask. If you ask a certain portion of the population of this country, they will say, this guy, is just a patriot who just cares about his country maybe got hot-headed and did something a bit silly. If you talk to other people, they will say these guys are the worst, white supremacists and just the worst extremists that there are in the country. And I think the reality is, it's complicated. It's probably somewhere right in the middle of that, and what our bar as journalists to cover this, our bar was, look, these people have been charged with very serious federal felonies. They were involved in an historic insurrection that was watched by the entire world, where, I was there, I watched it, I stood there and watched it happening, and, could have been a turning point for our country. As far as I'm concerned, as a reporter, that makes them fair game, regardless of what organization they might be affiliated with. What makes them interesting, what makes them newsworthy, is the fact that they've been charged with these federal crimes in the furtherance of a massively important period, or moment in our history. So the specific people we looked at were two guys connected to the Proud Boys, and one guy who's kind of a sort of a far right influencer, basically, and another guy who is a just out and out neo-Nazi, goes on live streams and does Hitler salutes and shouts the N-word, and it's just that's his deal. So as far as I was concerned, all those people were fair game. Now, with the caveat that the last guy I'm talking about, he was fundraising on a different platform, wasn't involved with January 6th, but he was nevertheless crowdfunding online, so we included him in the story.
Right. Can you go a little bit more into those individuals and basically who they are?
Sure. So you have two guys, Nick Oakes and Nick DiCarlo, who are the two Proud Boys. They're the guys who were kind of in a kind of iconic, kind of famous photo. They were photographed grinning in front of the lectern. One guy I think maybe they both had cigarettes in their mouth. One of them definitely did. Nick Oakes is a founder of the Proud Boys, or he's the founder of the Proud Boys Hawaii chapter, very active within the Proud Boys. You've got another guy called Nick DiCarlo, who is kind of less active, less well known. Both of those guys are also involved in the Murder the Media Collective, which is kind of like an alternative, far right. They call themselves journalists, Media Collective. So that's two of them. Then you've got a guy called Brandon Straker, or Straker, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was charged by the feds with essentially doing a live stream as he was allegedly charging into the Capitol. He, I believe, denies it. The feds have claimed that he was egging on the crowd to take away a shield from a from a policeman who was guarding the Capitol. And then there's another guy who I really try not to name, who's the neo-Nazi guy. I think we refer to him in the story, but I try not to give him any publicity if I can avoid it. He's just a nasty piece of work who does his neo-Nazi thing on the internet. So those are the people that we really kind of honed in on. But right. It's important to say, these are emblematic of a much bigger crowd. Something like more than 330, I think, people have been charged in connection to the insurrection. There's a lot of those people who fit into that category of Jane Doe, who got a bit too excited and went in and did some silly trespassing. There's definitely people there. We weren't really interested in those people. We're interested in the people who are in the public eye because they're a member of an organization, because they've been charged with serious crimes, and that's how we landed on those few examples.
Right. Now, do you know exactly what those individuals are being charged with in terms of their role at the Capitol that day?
It's all over the place. It's a variety of charges. I'd have to go and look at the documents for each specific one, but it ranges from conspiracy charges to I'd have to look up the specific charges, but they're basically along the lines of you went somewhere where you're not allowed to be and you caused mischief and violence in those places. But it's very, every person is different. There's an affidavit attached to every criminal case that lays out in explicit detail what they did. So anyone who's interested, we've done acres of coverage on it on USA Today. We've looked at pretty much all of the cases at this point. we have all the court documents linked in there. Like, go check out what they did, because it's all out there.
Right, and I have the piece, this particular piece, linked in the YouTube description and in the description for the podcast, which will be posted right after this this live stream. Now, what platforms were these individuals using for their fundraising?
So that was the interesting thing about this story. I mean, I think CNN had broken the story on about January 15th that a lot of these people involved had gone to a site called Give, Send, Go, which bills itself as a Christian fundraising site. What we found that was interesting was that there are these sort of Give, Send, Go clones that had appeared that really didn't have very many fundraisers on them at all. And they're all like really similarly named. So you've got like Go Get Funding. You've got, I think it's Our Patriot Funding. And they're really small, bare bones websites, in some cases with like just, a dozen or a couple of dozen fundraisers on them. One of them is called All Funded as well. And it was pretty clear that they had sort of been built up in conjunction with like these particular people who needed to raise money, which I found so interesting. It's like, I guess you kind of think of crowdfunding efforts as like, well, you go to GoFundMe, right? I mean, that's what you do. You go to Kickstarter, you go to one of these big legacy companies. Both of those companies, certainly GoFundMe, I'm not sure about Kickstarter, had said like, we're not okay with people raising money on our platforms for this. So it's like, build your own, like make your own, or find a friend who's similarly politically aligned with you who will then make it. What's interesting is like the companies that provide the services to those websites, so the PayPals of the world, the Stripes of the world, the payment processors had said, if somebody breaks our terms and conditions, we're not okay with them fundraising when they're on GoFundMe or on the PayPal platform. And what these guys were clearly doing was just moving to a new platform, setting up a new fundraiser, and just kind of hoping that the payment processors wouldn't notice. And so, part of the main point of our story was to point out, hey, you've got these multi-billion-dollar tech companies that are supposed to be like keeping an eye on these people and making sure they're not raising money. And like, we can very, very easily like find them raising money using those payment processors elsewhere. And that's probably something that should be pointed out. And so that was the whole driving point of our story.
Right. Now, when you came across these fundraisers, I think some of them do show this, but obviously not all. Do you have an idea of how much that these individuals had raised when you came across them?
Yeah, I mean, it says now, obviously, like some of these guys have multiple fundraisers in different places, but I mean, that guy, Brandon Strucker, had raised almost like $180,000. I think that the Proud Boys had raised far less, like a few $1,000s, or I think even in Nick DiCarlo's case, like a few $100s. So not a lot of money, like in some of those cases, at least not yet. I mean, in some of these were pretty new. But I mean, for example, Nick Oakes, in the same time, he'd only raised I think it was like $7,000 on one of these platforms. He had a Give, Send, Go fundraiser where he raised upwards of like 20 grand or something. So I mean, it's not peanuts, but not huge amounts of money most of the time.
Right. Funny story about Brandon Straka. I mean, this is a guy who he's got he's dipped his toes in many different areas of the right wing sphere. And I was once on an international show, and he was on with me, and he had mentioned this was in the early days of the pandemic last year, and he was one of those guys who was making a name for himself by traveling around the country via airplane in like April 2020. Going to all these anti-lockdown rallies. Yeah, without a mask, going to these anti-lockdown rallies. And I told him while we were on the program, live on the show, that it was very irresponsible for him to do that. And he could be getting people sick. And he proceeded to start frantically yelling that I was calling him a murderer. It was quite a thing to be a part of. I didn't say it. He did.
Yeah.
but so I guess it's not surprising that he would be able to raise so much. He's the Proud Boy guys seem to be the on the ground activists who've pretty much made their name just by being Proud Boys, whereas Brandon Straka is like a right wing media darling because he's
Right.
the Democrat who walked away.
Right.
Now, what happened to these fundraisers when you reached out to the various companies? Well, first there were the companies you reached out to who didn't respond or said that there were certain fundraisers that were okay with their terms.
Yeah. Go. I mean, go. Go. I always get them confused. I think it's go get funding. No, give, send, go. It's so confusing. Give, send, go wouldn't talk to us. I mean, we tried to contact them. They've made their position clear. They're basically like, look, people are okay with, raising money on our platforms. A couple of the others were like concerned. They voiced concern. What's sort of more interesting is that the payment processors, the people who actually take the credit card numbers and take the cash out of people's accounts and pass it on, like they were really responsive. I mean, they've really, they've put on the record that they're not okay with people who break their terms of service, like raising money. And so they, as we would report something to them or ask them about something, they would very quickly kind of swoop in on it and shut it down if it was breaking their, terms of service. So, I think that's one of the things we received criticism for was like, well, why do you have to go like reporting this stuff? But I mean, it's, when somebody is doing something that contravenes like either a government or a company's policies, I don't think there's anything wrong with writing about that. I mean, at a very basic level, no, I'm not going to go there. I mean, it's just it's they were doing things that they weren't supposed to be able to do. Like that's what it comes down to. They weren't supposed to be able to be doing that, and they were doing it. And we found that interesting and thought that it would be newsworthy.
Right. I think it is newsworthy because these are those companies, and in the case of like a Stripe or a Cash App, like these are large corporations. They have terms of service, and you're checking in to see what's going on here. Are the terms no longer accurate, or are these individuals not breaking your terms? And if so, can you explain what the deal is there? And and here's sort of the thing to me, like any of these companies, and you said in one or two of the cases, well, one of the cases they didn't respond, but another case, I think in one of the cases, there were two people crowdfunding on one of these platforms, and one of them was breaking the terms, and the other one, for one reason or another, wasn't breaking the terms, and they told you that. Is that
They
correct?
wouldn't say, they wouldn't say why, but they basically said, we're okay with this guy, we're not okay with this guy. Here's the point, though. Like, the point, as far as I'm concerned, is look, if I can, in 5 minutes, go on Telegram, go on, wherever, go on Twitter, and find somebody who has been banned from a company, still using that company, then as far as I'm concerned, like multi-billion-dollar tech companies can do that too. Like that's what's so interesting and for me bizarre about the whole kind of blow up from this story is that really I always saw this as like a critique of big tech companies for being short-sighted and not doing their job. I don't understand why, large payment processors can't hire a group of people who, just as I do and other people in my profession do, monitor these guys and keep a close eye on them. If they're really serious about not allowing these people to use their product, and that's a whole other argument. I don't take a moral position as far as, whether somebody should be able to allow somebody to use somebody else's product. Like that's a whole other philosophical argument. But if you've already decided like people are allowed to use our product, then do that, like put some teeth behind that, actually make that happen, or you don't get to say that you're doing that, or we get to point out that you're not actually doing that. So that's what's so random about this story is like, it's, for me, it's a critique of tech companies, not at all a comment on whether people should be allowed to raise money on crowdfunding. you know?
Right, right.
I
I mean,
mean,
in the case of the piece that you wrote, I was reading it, and really trying to find where you were advocating for these individuals to not be able to crowdfund, and it's honestly not there. I didn't. Again,
and
like I said, there were
they are crowdfunding.
right, right,
There are people, there are companies, there are parts of the internet, there are tech companies increasing, and there will be more who are perfectly happy to host fundraisers for these people. Like there are also plenty of places where you can go on the internet and you can say, please send me money, send me a check, send me Bitcoin. They're doing it all the time. Like nobody's advocating for like not allowing people to use the internet to raise money. That's not the point. It's just don't use the exact or the companies, the exact companies that you are using aren't, can't say nobody's using it if they actually are, right?
right, right. I mean, they could have just said, "Oh, this person. Oh, we allow this person for such and such reason. They're not breaking our terms." And that would have been it. That would have been. I mean, you would have written about it because it's part of the story. But there
Of
wouldn't
course.
have been any like demand that they take them off the platform. It's just it doesn't like I really like this whole. That I guess we should lay a little ground here. Again, I could do that because I know that you might not be able to talk about certain things, but there was a big uproar about this piece from certain areas of the internet. Glenn Greenwald, who he's done great work over the years, but I also I have criticisms myself of a lot of his takes in the past couple of years. He had a real problem with the piece, and one part that he actually honed in on that really baffled me how he read it was there's a part in the piece where you and your two colleagues wrote about how basically to check on what was the company that specifically said that these individuals weren't allowed on the platform, and then you had to test it out to make sure that they were
I think it was Stripe.
right.
It was Stripe. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So you had you and your colleagues had actually after Stripe told you that these individuals should not be fundraising on their platform because it's against their terms. You had found their fundraisers using Stripe the fundraisers are using Stripe, and
Yeah.
you decided to test out what they told you. And
Right.
you had donated a small fee just to test it out to these individuals, and it went through. And people online took it as some sort of, oh look, you're inserting yourself into the story. But the fact of the matter is they had told you first that these individuals weren't allowed on there. So you're basically
Right.
testing the word of a
Right.
major corporation, and they were inaccurate in what they told you because they were actually helping these individuals fundraise.
And here's the thing, like everybody buys stuff online, right? And we all know that you can buy stuff online, you can put your credit card details in, and you can press it, and then can say this cannot be processed, right? Happens all the time. Okay. Now, what Stripe would have been able to do had we not made those donations, Stripe could have said, yeah, they claim that you can give them money. They claim that you can give them money, but if you try, it doesn't actually work. Now, of course, by this point, they've shut it down, right? So what we had to do, if we were going to report, okay, these guys are making money through this mechanism, we had to go the whole hog, and we had a big discussion about the ethics of this. Is it okay to give money to these people? Like, should we do it? How should we do it? Okay, we've got to use our real names. We've got to put like this as a test. Like I literally donated money to the Proud Boys, like, USA Today did. And like, we had to do that because we had to know that it wasn't just, anybody can put, I could make a website right now and put powered by Stripe and put a payment thing in there and say, this is powered by Stripe. But until it goes through and you get an email from them saying, yes, this has gone through, you don't know whether that's actually powered by Stripe. So again, this is about accountability of the tech companies who claim one thing and allow another. It's not a story about somebody's right to use certain technology or certain companies.
Right, right. And give me 1 second here while I write down. I don't want to forget my idea for my next piece. Right-wing extremists funded by Will Carless. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
No, but I I can take a moral stand on this show. It's my show, and I don't have to worry about anything. I can take a moral stand. Personally, I think anyone should be able to fundraise however they'd like to, especially for something like a legal case. I've got no problem with that. However, nobody has the right to use any sort of specific platform to do that fundraising. Like if I ran a company that enabled, like if I ran a GoFundMe clone and I had someone fundraising for a questionable reason on my platform that I ran, I am under no obligation to help that individual or that fundraiser obtain those funds. I would have every right to cancel it. I mean, it's just no.
Indeed, that's fascism. Like when you start demanding that companies, you know, serve everybody equally. Is that a fascism or communism, right? When you start demanding that private companies must must raise up whoever, you know, anybody, you're taking away that company's right to say, no, I'm not okay with that. I'm not, you know, or, you know, the individuals who run that company's right to say, no, we're not going to do that. The example I always come back to, and this is a bigger conversation about platforming and tech and everything else, but the example I always come back to is, let's say you live in a little village, right? And in that little village, there is a open lot in the middle, right in the middle of the village that one family owns, right? They own that lot in the middle of the village, okay? And that family says, right, we're going to allow that lot to be used every Friday afternoon. We're going to put a soapbox in the middle and we're going to say, come along, and anybody who comes along is allowed to stand up there and like make their political speech, right?
Right.
Now, they do that. Then along comes somebody who decides that they're going to get up there and all they're going to do is shout obscenities and shout, you know, racial, you know, racist stuff like over and over again. And that's going to be their performance. And the family gets together and they say, you know what, we don't really want these people coming onto our land and doing that, right? I think, you know, I don't think it's a particularly wacky idea to think that like that family owns that land and they can decide who goes on it and who doesn't go on it, you know? And that's sort of where I've come down to on this whole thing is it's you know, that family, those agitators are perfectly welcome to go anywhere else where they're accepted and stand on a soapbox and shout obscenities. They can go do that anywhere else. But if you force the family that owns that piece of land to have anybody else, they effectively don't own that land anymore, right? And so that's how I see this whole argument going down, and that's how it is with payment processors. You know, they shouldn't be forced to give service to you know, to everybody. It's up to them. They're public company. They're private company.
Right, and a major part of this whole conversation, the whole discourse surrounding this article, was that specifically these were people fundraising for legal cases. And, you know, my issue with that is, I mean, obviously that's important. And you know what, maybe, I guess you brought up like you know, it'd be fascism for for the government to force these payment processors to do these things. But maybe like, you know, the more accurate, I guess, socialist or communist version of that would be the government starting its own, like having its own process for people to raise money specifically for legal cases.
But it does. It effectively does.
Right, in a way.
Well, it does. I mean, everybody who's been charged in the Capitol riot is entitled to legal representation. They get a government-appointed, government-paid-for lawyer. That's the first point. The second point is, okay, so these guys are, you know, somebody has posted something on one of these websites that God knows who's regulating them. God knows who's like actually paying attention to where the money's going. And they're saying, this is a legal defense for this guy over here. It's a legal defense. It's a legal fund for so-and-so. Like, okay, like who's actually watching whether that money's actually going to that person's legal defense? Like whose pockets is it actually going into at the end of the day? What's it actually being spent on at the end of the day? You know, and I think actually, ultimately, I think that's a big reason why a lot of these payment processors have said, look, we're not okay with facilitating these payments because you aren't jumping through all the hoops that we require you to jump into to make sure that that money actually goes to legal fees. We're fine with people. Like I think you can go to the major tech companies and you can go to them as any individual and say, look, this is absolutely a funding. This is actually absolutely a fundraiser for legal fees. This is my attorney. My attorney's setting it up, and he wants to get it. I doubt there are many payment processors, fundraising sites in this country that would say, no, we're not going to allow it because of who you are, what you believe in, right?
Right.
What the reason these people have been banned is because they're, it's Joe Schmo showing up and saying, hey, I'm going to do a fundraiser for my buddy. Like, is that okay? Oh, no, actually, it's not okay because we don't know where that money is going to be going. You're not an attorney, and all these other reasons, So it's I think we can all agree, like, yes, of course, people are entitled to legal representation, but first of all, they get it. It's paid for by our tax dollars. And secondly, if you want to raise money to go and pay for a fancy attorney, there's lots of ways you can do it, just not specifically on platforms that have said you can't do it on ours.
Right. I think the one criticism that I understand from people is that, and I'm not too familiar with this part of it specifically, but apparently, I don't know where the income level or how that works, but apparently, it's the lawyers provided if you cannot afford one, and I don't know how they decide if you can afford one, right. And but if I'm not mistaken, one of the platforms, and to obviously add to your point here. One of the platforms that you wrote about that was part of this story was one of the platforms that Kyle Rittenhouse had used to raise funds for his own legal case. Of course, Rittenhouse is the 17-year-old man who shot and killed two Black Lives Matter protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer. So, I mean, clearly, if you can prove that this money is connected to your legal funds, they're fine with you fundraising. I mean, I don't think there's a better proof than Rittenhouse's case itself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Give, Send, Go right now has, at least a few dozen fundraisers connected to January 6th and people raising legal fees. That's just one. One fundraising side. I mean, there are, again, these people are able to go on all sorts of different platforms and ask for money. They're able to do it. I'm sure, there are anchors on Fox News who'd be happy to talk to some of these people and spread their message to millions of people, So the idea that there's some sort of helpless people that don't have any way of raising money, I'm sorry, it's not true. I don't buy it whatsoever. And the idea that us writing a story pointing out the hypocrisy in certain tech companies and how they're dealing with people is a takedown of like people's legal right to representation. It's just absurd.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, where are we? Where are these individuals left right now? Now, are they? Have they set up new fundraisers on different platforms? I mean, like we keep talking about Stripe and PayPal and all these other major platforms that I think most people are familiar with. But I mean, there are dozens upon dozens of payment platforms out there that aren't Stripe and PayPal and Cash App. There's like Braintree and all these other, and then of course we're not even getting into where the right is really honing in on in terms of their online fundraising efforts, and that's decentralized systems like cryptocurrency with Bitcoin. I mean, I just had on a couple of weeks ago a guest who was going in depth about the $500,000 Nick Fuentes was gifted from a.
I think it was 200 grand, right? It was like 500,000 to everyone, and he got 200 grand of it. Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's it. Yeah. A lot of money. Yeah, and from this like French software developer who ends up committing suicide after he donates this money. Just a bizarre story altogether. But
right.
But there's plenty of ways these guys are able to raise funds. So if your worry is that the right wingers, the fascists, the white supremacists, the white nationalists, aren't able to make a living, fear not. I mean, it seems like they're finding ways. Now,
It's,
what about the individuals that
yeah.
you wrote about?
I mean, same thing. I mean, I'm sort of moving away from that and doing some other reporting now and not kind of, tracking it. One of the things, and we had a discussion last week where we were like, look, let's just get this story out because every day there's a new processor showing up. We're going to have to do a whole bunch, a new fundraising. So we're going to have to do a whole bunch more reporting on it. Like, look, the moment our story came out, okay, some of those sites may fall out of favor with the tech companies, but there's going to be another one made tomorrow, and then there's going to be another one, then there's going to be another one. There are apparently in the works right now, payment processing companies, the people who actually, do the transactions, who are going to help support people on the far right. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. Like if that happens, then, we can write about it because it's something that happened. My job is to say, what's happening? Is it of interest? Let's write about it. So, that's as all of this stuff evolves and develops, we'll keep an eye on it and we'll write about it. And I think it's interesting to people, and everybody's got their opinion. But I do think it's just a bit silly to attack people for doing their jobs and for actually trying to do their jobs well and just assigning a whole different set of values and philosophies to something that clearly doesn't, clearly isn't trying to put those values across.
Right. So I think there's when you look at these cases, I do think there are I think the federal government is trying to I guess send a message with a lot of these charges I'm seeing. And I think these people, obviously everyone who's involved in this certainly has to deal with the consequences of their actions. But I do feel like there's, some of these people who what they did doesn't really amount to years and years in jail. So I think that's what I guess is hitting some people and making them angry. It's still, I mean, all you really have to do is read the piece and you can find out that everything you're angry about is actually, in fact, not in the piece. I really do think that most of the people who are upset didn't actually read it.
I totally agree. And funnily enough, I don't think I'll get into trouble for saying this, but I mean, this was not, a massively well-read story. I mean, it got plenty of reads, but not compared to, a lot of the other stories that we've written recently. So, I mean, that's my suspicion, is that most people have taken the outrage from here, and here, and have just made it a big deal out of it, because it's just like, I mean, yeah, like you say, I mean, our story didn't say those things. They've seen a headline and they've ascribed motives and ascribed reporting that we didn't do.
Right. And I, again, if you can't say anything about this, I totally understand. But I need to mention it because I see some people messaging me about it. Why didn't I reach out to have your colleague Brenna Smith on the program? And I did reach out to her. We spoke, and I'd love to have her on in the future. Hopefully, we could work something out. But I think one of the reasons why this piece got so much blowback, with everything you said in mind, was that you had a young woman who on her Twitter profile is listed as she is listed in her bio an intern at USA Today as the first name on this piece. And I think, honestly, as sad as it is, that sparks a lot of people to go after a young woman journalist. And, at the same time, I sort of get angry at the people who saw defending her for bringing up how she's just an intern, leave her be. And I think,
she hasn't said that.
She hasn't. No.
Not said that.
That's what I'm saying.
She hates being called the intern.
Oh, I could imagine.
Brenner is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I could imagine, because that actually, I would never have, I don't get people who are doing that to defend her, because listen, the piece is good. It's a good piece. Defend the piece on the merits. She's a young journalist who wrote a good piece. There's no need to defend her because she's an intern. No, you defend her because she wrote a good piece. I mean, that's really what.
Well, I mean, let's not also ignore the fact that, very quickly on Twitter, the attacks became very personal against my colleague, and were very personal and very hurtful in nature and went into a whole different realm. I mean, it went from criticizing the journalism to people who clearly didn't know anything about the journalism and weren't interested in it and wanted to pile hate on a young woman at the beginning of her career, and that's really sad. And it's really sad that people would do that. But I mean, that's, the sad reality of where we are. And I mean, there's no doubt that was also, if not ignited by, then certainly pushed along by, white males of a certain age with a big following on Twitter, so
Right.
it's a big issue. And thankfully it sparked a conversation about the way that women are treated, on social media. It's also sparked an outcry from the right about old journalists, crying about abuse online and everything else. Look, I mean, this is a tough job, and if there's one thing that my colleague has learned, over the last sort of week or so, it's that you do have to have a thick skin to be in this game, and you do. I mean, I'm getting voicemails right now that I know the moment I pick them up are going to be full of like people shouting at me and telling me I'm a hack and everything else, and that's just part of the territory of being a journalist in 2021. It's not okay, but I mean, it's part of the work that we do. And, Brenna's, a very, very smart and able young lady who's going to go on to a fantastic career. And I think this was a baptism of fire to a certain extent, but it also, shows the extent of the work that she can do and the ability of the work that she does, So, yeah, fully support her. And I think it's sad that things kind of degenerated the way that they did.
Right. Will Carless, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything, just to make sure, is there anything you think that we didn't hit that you want to just make sure we mention, or?
No, I think we did well. Yeah, I think we did well. I think we covered most of this stuff. Look, I mean, we're not in every good writer, every good journalist knows that your biggest friends are your biggest critics, and we want criticism. Like, I want my editor to take my story and rip it apart and say, like, this is rubbish, you need to make this better, and we're not in any way averse to criticism. No good journalist is averse to criticism, but sometimes there's criticism, sort of criticism for the sake of criticism that doesn't really, that just doesn't hit home. And I think I'm the first person to stand up and say, I screwed up on this thing. I didn't make this. I didn't write this right. I made some mistakes. I don't think that happened here. I think you had people who misinterpreted, who ascribed, motives to us that weren't there, and and I'm perfectly happy with that. But look, I mean, I'll listen to anybody, and if they want to change my mind, they can, hit me up.
Right. I just really quick. I just remembered a really funny response I got, because I sort of got wrapped up in this discourse too, because I just thought it was online. I could not believe the outrage over this. So someone had actually said to me, one of these types, probably young white male who feels like he longs for the days of the old school, fearless, independent, truth to power journalism that apparently he believes doesn't exist anymore. He said, we got wrapped up in this debate, and I said, well, a number of these platforms that are in the piece actually said that they're going to continue fundraising for these individuals, and the piece basically reports that and leaves it at that. Doesn't try to force them to change their mind. Isn't like there's nothing that what you think is there is not there. And they said, well, why did they write about it? And I said, because it's a story. There's a trend going on here. And these big tech companies were basically, some of them at least, were lying to them about what was going on this platform. And they were like, well, if these journalists keep writing about it, don't you think those companies are going to be forced to crack down on them? And I could not believe this person said that. Like, did they not understand that this, again, fearless, independent journalism is what this person's longing for, yet the journalist shouldn't write about this company. Otherwise, the company might change their ways and basically saying that
Right.
these companies should be able to dictate what the journalists cover and how they cover it. It's like
Right.
that's the whole point of writing about these tech companies. It's to make them take a stand, and if they want to take that stand, that's great. We'll write about it, and they could deal with whatever public blowback
I
they want to take from
I
that.
would I would push back on that slightly and say, I don't think the whole point of it is to make tech companies take a stand. I think the whole point of it is to, I've always seen my job as a journalist as being a passer on of information, a spreader of information, and what happens to that information is by the by. Like if something is unjust, if something is untrue, if something is is simply out of whack, then it's my job to write about it. And what companies or governments go on to do with that information is up to them.
Right.
That's my position as a reporter, and simply passing on that information, I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I stand 100% behind what we did.
Right. I completely agree. Will, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything you want to plug? Any upcoming piece? Any link? Any Twitter, Facebook,
I've got
social
a
media profile?
big story dropping next week that I think will hopefully cause a bigger splash than this. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. Yeah, at Will Carless.
All right, great. Now I'm excited I might have to reach back out to you if maybe have you back on. Thanks so much, Will. Take care. Great. Have a great night.
Thanks, Matt. Cheers. You too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to. Oh, what time is it? Let's. There's some things There's some. Some. What does Sam Cedar usually call it on the Majority Report? Some house cleaning. Let us. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. Support this show by going to Patreon and subscribing if you can afford to do so. If you cannot, again, time's tough. I completely understand. But you will join some of these wonderful people like, I can't remember if I mentioned them last week, so let me mention them this week. Kiwi M, brand new patron. Domas S, brand new patron. Colorbox, another brand new patron. And Sarah A, my most recent patron and the very last patron to join the show in the month of March 2021. Thank you guys so much for becoming a member of this program and supporting the show financially. Could not do this without you. And as you all know, it's the beginning of the month, April 1st, April Fool's Day, I should say. And if you've caught my other beginning of the month shows, you'll know that this is when Patreon usually charges everybody. And that means people will cancel, cards will be declined, and of course, I will lose some patrons. And of course, I lost some patrons. So if you could support this show, as always, the beginning of the month, we lose some people. It'd be super helpful to gain those people back. And if you can afford to do so, you can be one of those people. Patreon.com/MattBinder. Show is growing. Every month we gain more subscribers than the last month. And when it gets to a certain point, I'd love to be able to really build out the show in a way that extends the amount of stuff I do. And if you're watching live right now, you could drop a super chat. I'll read all the super chat questions. YouTube.com/MattBinder. Drop a super chat. It doesn't have to be a question. It could be a comment. Whatever. I'll read it. Also, I should mention, on this day, 10 years ago, excuse me, I need a drink. On this day, 10 years ago, April 1st, 2011, it was my first official day working for the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. That was the very beginning of my career and I guess you could say progressive media, online digital, sort of. I worked for a new startup before the Majority Report, but it was, I would say, I cemented myself in this world on that day. And yeah, 10 years, a whole decade, man. Whole decade. Who knows what I'd be doing if Sam didn't hire me on this day 10 years ago? Maybe I'd be making a whole lot more money. Thanks a lot, Sam. Invisible Ninja with a $10 super chat says 10-ish dollars for 10 years. Oh, because he gave it $9.99 super chat. 10-ish dollars for 10 years with MR. And of course, for all you do, support the Patreon peeps. Love you, Binder. Sword, crossing swords emoji, heart emoji. Thank you, Invisible Ninja. I really appreciate the kind words and the support. It means a lot to me. Yeah. You can also support this show by subscribing on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Doomedpod.com is the website for the audio version of this show. All those links to those podcast platforms I've mentioned to you should be right there on the site. Follow me on social media, wherever, at Matt Binder. Usually, that's who I am on Twitter, Instagram. Search me anywhere, really, by just going Matt Binder. I'll pop up. What else? Oh, I'm going to say again, youtube.com/Matt Binder. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're a YouTube subscriber, you might have noticed something different this week. Almost every day this week, I uploaded content. Now, let me explain what's going on here. A very generous listener reached out to me, and this individual is helping me by basically taking the show each week, finding some good segments, clipping them out for me, and sending them over. So all I got to do is upload them, throw on a title, description, and click publish. And thanks to that person, it's honestly a huge help. I can't thank them enough. And hopefully, if I was able to grow the Patreon to a healthy point, I'd be able to monetarily thank this person. But this person is generously volunteering their time. Luckily, they are regular listeners to the show, so they're able to listen and cut while they listen. Otherwise, I'd feel really bad if they had to, if I was forcing them to listen to this show. But really, so thanks to this person, you will be getting, I don't know about every day, but multiple clips each week at youtube.com/MattBinder. The clips are good because, if you're not, there's the live stream audience who likes to sit and watch a 2 to 3 hour marathon. But then, you can't really share that stuff with your passive political friends. You need to share like a quick 2 to 20 minute clip, I guess, to really get people, to satiate people's attention span, I guess. What else? What else do I want to plug? I don't know what else I want to plug. I've got no idea. Oh, if you guys can leave an iTunes review, I will appreciate it immensely. The show is actually like in the top 100 podcasts in the news commentary section. And that usually happens with a combination of podcast downloads and positive reviews. So, also, if you're not a podcast listener, so you don't subscribe to the iTunes feed, please consider just subscribing so Apple sees the numbers. Again, it really it helps, and the reviews really, really help. So again, all you gotta do is go on Apple Podcasts. I think I keep saying iTunes because it's so ingrained in my head after I don't even know how many years, 8 years of it being iTunes. I was uploading podcasts too. So just go to Apple Podcasts, click that 5-star review, leave a sentence or two description saying whatever the hell you want about this show. And only leave 5-star if you think it's a 5-star show. I mean, I would love the 5 stars, but I'm not gonna. I want you to give me what you think I deserve. So again, friends, thanks for all your support. We got a bunch of super chats flying in. I'll get to those in the second half of the show. I will open the phones, but I got a lot of stories to get to. So I'm gonna open the phones. If you want to call in, go on Skype, log on to Skype right now. Doomed Live is the username. Type in Doomed Live, it'll come up. I'll take maybe 1-2 calls, and then I have a few stories I want to hit. Yeah. Until next time, for all you, if you're watching on the live stream, you could stick around with the patrons, get a taste of what it's like to be a patron. I mean, you'll love the taste of being a doomed patron, huh? So you'll want to dive in and become a patron after you get a taste of the second half of the show. But for all you freebie listeners, catching the replay or catching the podcast version of the show, I'll see you all next time on Doomed. Hello, everybody. I just opened up the phone lines. Welcome to the. Oh, okay. Welcome to the second half of the show, the patron half of the show. I just logged into the. I just logged into the Doomed Skype for the first time since the last show, and a listener had I guess someone who'd previously called in. I'm not gonna call them out and say who, but they left me a message saying, "Sorry, didn't mean to call. Don't know how to use Skype, and my screen is a little broken. Let's just say this is a Giuliani butt dial." I don't know who that was, but thank you for that. Bum bum bum. Let's see here. What should I get to first? What do you guys think I should get to first? It's your call. Your call. I mean, it's actually not your call. You have no idea what I have on the docket here. Let me read a super chat or two, and then I'll get to some of these clips. Renee with a slew of super chats. Na Zambrovia. I don't know how to say this stuff, man. Joyeux anniversary, Marapacos. Patsies or useful idiots. Oh, Patsy. Okay, this was in English, this part. Patsies or useful idiots. Plug the Discord, the Do Me to Normie pipeline. Oh, I really gotta get on top of that. A number of patrons have said they haven't been able to get into the Discord. I'm sorry for dropping the ball there. I'll get it right on top of that. I promise you. Get you guys all on that Discord. Let me now get to some clips. What clip should I get to here? You know, there's some really. All right, let's get to this one. So, this. Okay, let me reset here. So, former Trump administration press secretary Sean Spicer went on Newsmax today. And the topic of conversation between him and the host was, well, ostensibly, this clip going around of Jill Biden, the First Lady, Joe Biden's wife. She did some event and outside on the White House lawn, and she attempted to speak Spanish, and obviously her Spanish isn't very good. And they were going to discuss this, and they had a very, honestly, a very, very, very riveting conversation. Honestly, I was shocked. It might have been some of the the greatest points I've ever heard Trump's press secretary Sean Spicer ever say. Really, really eloquent words from him. Let's dive right in and hear what he had to say.
Oh, Sean Spicer and Company. Hey, I mean, come on, Spanish isn't her language, you know. I guess we could, good old college try, I suppose. Yes, but of course, the press would have crucified Melania Trump or Donald Trump if they attempted and failed as badly as she did. But of course, they were all too willing to hold their fire.
Did you catch what Sean Spicer said there? Let's continue with the clip.
I'm sorry, not Jill, Dr. Jill Biden. Hey, Sean, what do you guys have coming up on Spicer and Company tonight?
I've been holding that in because Sean Spicer's still going. He's on mute.
Oh, right on, right on. Major League Baseball contemplating moving the All-Star game out of Georgia because I guess Major League Baseball opposes voter integrity. I mean, who knew, right?
He's still talking? They have him on mute. This aired live on Newsmax.
Great point, great point. Sean Spicer.
Oh my God. So clearly what happened here is, being that the Newsmax host was still going, as if he was actually holding a conversation with Sean Spicer, was that he did hear Sean Spicer in his earpiece and was unaware that the public cable TV feed was not hearing Sean Spicer because there's some technical difficulty. Made for some riveting television. Sean Spicer, honestly, at his best. I would love to hear more of that, Sean Spicer. All right, let's see here. Someone just messaged me on Skype. Oh, the Skype caller who accidentally butt dialed me, who I will call Giuliani, messaged me. It was me, Paradise Lay. I accidentally called around 2 a.m. your time. I'm glad my whoopsie made you laugh and got to be part of the show. You can always call me out. I always will, Paradise. I promise you. Zoe, would you like to call in and school me on my terrible French? Was that what Renee was speaking? Call in, Zoe, if you can. Help me out here. Help me figure out how to pronounce that stuff. Mariah with a super chat. Oh, wait. I'll get right back to your super chat, Mariah. Let me go to the phones here. Hello? Is this who I think it is?
It's me.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't have your volume up. Is this who I think it is?
Yes, it's me.
Hello, Zoe. How are you doing today?
I'm alright.
Is it time for me to go to French class?
Yeah.
Let's do it. What was Renee saying and how should I pronounce it?
Renee said, Joyeux anniversaire.
Oh, my. Well, first of all, why don't you translate that bad boy for me? What was he saying there?
Oh, that means happy birthday.
Oh, why? Thank you, Renee. Now let me. Oh, this seems like a very generic, common phrase that I should learn in multiple languages. Can you tell me this again? I'm truly interested in learning this now. How do I say happy birthday in French once again?
Joyeux
Joyeux
anniversaire.
anniversaire.
Annie.
Anniversaire.
Yes.
What's happy again? I forgot already.
Joyeux.
Joyeux
Joyeux.
joyeux anniversaire.
You need to pronounce the R's.
Anniversaire.
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 Yeah, not bad.
Joyeux anniversaire. Ha 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 ha.
We don't do that here.
Oh well, you're French Canadian. I'm gonna go the full. Is this just a French Canadian thing, or is that just the generic French that's happy birthday in French?
Oh, it's happy birthday in French.
Okay, so the hon 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 fits in general, but not for you up in Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec.
Is that where you are, right? Quebec?
Yes.
Are you in Montreal?
Yes, I'm in Montreal.
There we go.
And I'm not gonna lose my belt to that Chris guy.
Who? What? I missed something here.
Last week.
I don't remember anything. What could you refresh my memory?
He called about Dr. Seuss.
Oh, right. I remember now. Okay. I remember now. Got it. Well, Zoe, thank you so much for calling in and giving me my, I guess it's now weekly French lesson. I guess we'll do this every week.
Anytime you need to say something in French.
Okay. How do I say in French, see you all next time?
Je vous verrai la prochaine fois.
Okay.
Ou à la prochaine, en fait.
Let's keep this one for next week's lesson, because I think I'll take too long, and I think a couple words is fun for people. Hearing an entire French lesson might be a little bit too much. But thanks, Zoe. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's we had someone trying to call in right there. I'm gonna tell them to call back in. Let me hit up Mariah's super chat while I'm there. Mariah with a super chat. Maddie B, I'm doing my Lenin class again, so I can't call in. But hi, love you. Why, thank you, Mariah. Here's that caller. And have fun at your Lenin class. Hello. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You are on the air.
Smart water. This program contains scenes of violence, coarse language, and mature
What's going on here? Hello? Hello?
Yeah. It's Chris from Montreal.
Oh, it's Chris from Montreal calling in right after Zoe to completely thread the storyline.
That's right, because I was really
got
upset that Zoe got the jump on me, so...
We got continuity here at the Majority Report. This ain't like WWE Monday Night Raw where they hit up one storyline one week and then the next week completely forget it ever happened. Here in the Majority Report, we have a script supervisor and we make sure everything stays within canon.
That's right. I can't get my earbuds to get to work, so just a second. God damn it.
Well, Chris, what would you like to
You're
talk
back.
about? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. You sounded good to begin with. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I just couldn't hear you in my AirPods.
What would you like
I'm
to
back.
talk about? Yep, what would you like to talk about?
Just how I hate Zoe for getting on the call before me. That's the first part, but no, it's fine. And by the way, to Zoe, I don't think I have an accent, but I think like Zoe does. but that's a indoor fight.
Oh,
It's
you both. I can tell you right now, you both have an accent. So
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
you do. Yes,
You have a New York accent, so anyway.
You have an accent. I hear it. It's not. I would say you and Zoe have a different accent.
But
But
we're
you
kind
definitely.
of we're from the same cities, so there's regional accents. God damn it. Anyway, yeah, last week I called about cancel culture, and it's kind of still going on.
Right. Well,
But
this ain't going nowhere, my friend. We're gonna have this
it's
cancel
not,
culture
is it?
debate. We're gonna have this cancel culture debate till the end of time. I guarantee you.
Yeah, it keeps shifting. Like they call it a different name, but it's always the same thing.
Oh, of course, yes.
Actually, I wanted to have your thoughts on the whole Matt Gates gate.
Matt Gates, yep. Well, you're in luck, my friend. I have a number of clips that I'm going to play and talk about that right now. So let me, if you don't mind, I guess let's hop off this call and I'll get to those clips right now.
No problem. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that because it's really creepy, and he has resting pedophile face at most times, I would say.
Right. I'm not gonna,
No, it's allegedly.
He's allegedly resting pedophile face. Right. Okay. Thanks for the call, Chris. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. I'll hit you up probably next week or something. So, bye.
Sounds good. Find your ear pods. Take care.
Yeah, they're working now, so I'll keep listening and keep bugging Zoe.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye. All right, let's get to this. Let's get to this. Oh boy, this is quite the story. So let me pull up. I want to make sure I have the clips all ready to go here. Give me 1 second here. This is all right. So what is it? What day was that? Not yesterday, the 31st. The 30th, right? That was Tuesday. Okay, so on Tuesday, there was a story about how Matt Gaetz, Republican congressman, he's in the House, Florida representative to the U.S. House of Representatives. There was a story going around early Tuesday where Matt Gaetz was thinking about calling it a day and leaving his seat and hanging up his political boots. And he was shopping around to different right-wing media organizations, Newsmax, Fox News, maybe One American News as well, basically looking for a nice, plush little right-wing media gig. And that's, not out of the ordinary for right-wing politicians to get on these programs after their career, but is sort of odd for a young Congress member to look to get out of their role as an elected official to do that. If he had lost an election or, lost his seat or carried out a term and decided not to run for re-election, that'd be one thing, but that wasn't the case here. So I think some people were questioning what's going on here. I know I saw that and I was like, ooh, something about to drop or this is weird. Lo and behold, just a few hours later, something did drop. And apparently, the U.S. Department of Justice has been investigating Matt Gaetz over an improper relationship, allegedly, with a 17-year-old woman. I mean, 17-year-old, so technically really a girl. And they were looking into how he was spending money, apparently paying for her accommodations and her airfare, flying her around. And just a bizarre story. And the story goes even further because the reason the Department of Justice even found out about this was because they were researching an even more bizarre case involving an associate of Matt Gaetz and I will likely get into that on another date. We'll do a full bore breakdown of that. I'll probably have a guest on to talk about that. But the Matt Gaetz thing by itself is weird. And there was already this whole weird separate side story that I'm now wondering how separate it is, about his adopted now adult son, Nestor, a young immigrant who he apparently adopted as an adult, who lives with him. He calls him his son, but we're talking like a man here. Just a bizarre, weird thing. Very, very weird. But, you know, and this whole thing added to that. And I should say, by the way, that this investigation began under the Trump administration. Bill Barr, who was Trump's attorney general, Bill Barr is the one. It was his Department of Justice that opened up this investigation into Matt Gaetz's alleged relationship with this young lady. So something weird's going on here. Something bizarre is going on here. Well, obviously, you find out a bunch more. Matt Gaetz is trying to set the story straight by saying there's some sort of conspiracy against him and how he was being blackmailed, and this is not true, not accurate, not real. His father was brought into this, and his father was forced to wear a wire. Or so, just a really out there story. But it gets even weirder. And this weird section of the story was luckily caught on videotape. So, unlike everything I just talked to you about, which was all, written reporting and, Gaetz putting out statements on Twitter, etc., this is something that literally played out in front of all of us on live television that same night on Fox News when Matt Gaetz went on the Tucker Carlson show. Tucker obviously reached out to him to set the story straight. Gaetz probably thought this was a great opportunity to do that, to defend himself. Tucker probably thought this was going to be a great way to help out one of his favorite Republicans, I'm sure, being how Trumpian Gaetz is, and help him set the record straight. Let me give you a little hint before we dive in. It did not go the way I think Matt Gaetz hoped it went. It did not go the way I think Tucker Carlson expected it to go. Let's dive right in and hit up this first clip that I pulled. Sort of kicks off. It gets right into it, but it's sort of at the very beginning, kicks off the interview with Matt Gaetz really trying hard to give his side of the story.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it. So this is obviously a serious allegation. Tell us what the truth is from your perspective.
It is a horrible allegation, and it is a lie. The New York Times is running a story that I have traveled with a 17-year-old woman, and that is verifiably false. People can look at my travel records and see that that is not the case. What is happening is an extortion of me and my family involving a former Department of Justice official. On March 16th, my father got a text message demanding a meeting wherein a person demanded $25 million in exchange for making horrible sex trafficking allegations against me go away. Our family was so troubled by that, we went to the local FBI. And the FBI and the Department of Justice were so concerned about this attempted extortion of a member of Congress that they asked my dad to wear a wire, which he did with the former Department of Justice official. Tonight, I am demanding that the Department of Justice and the FBI release the audio recordings that were made under their supervision and at their direction, which will prove my innocence and that will show that these allegations aren't true. They're merely intended to try to bleed my family out of money.
Very carefully worded, if you'll notice. And also, never really gets into why his dad's wearing a wire. Who is his dad? Who did the FBI want to get on tape? Using Matt Gaetz' dad. Just really, I think that actually ends up giving more questions than answers. I mean, he sort of dives into a whole nother story, which I'm sure will be scrutinized and looked at. And I'm sure Tucker is sitting there with his classic confused look. But I'm actually going to say that this is one of those times where Tucker's confused face actually fits what Tucker's thinking. The guy's probably legitimately confused right now. And things get even weirder because Matt Gaetz then goes ahead to discuss his story by trying to compare it to something Tucker Carlson went through, which I'm sure Tucker Carlson did not want to have brought up.
And I believe we are in an era of our politics now, Tucker, where people are smeared to try to take them out of the conversation. I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of...
Could you imagine inviting this guy on your show, throwing him a bone? You want him to be able to tell his side of the story, get this straight. You don't want your buddy, this guy you like, to go down this way. And he goes on there and he basically says, "Hey, Tucker, remember that time you were allegedly accused? You were accused of allegedly sexual improperness." Let's continue that clip and just rewind for a second. That's just too
take them out of the conversation. I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of something that you did not do, and so you know what this feels like. You know the pain it can bring to your family, and you know how it just puts people on defense when you're accused of something so salacious and awful. But it did not happen. It is not true. And the fact that it is the basis of this attempt to extort my family tells a lot. And if the FBI and Department of Justice will release the tapes that they are in possession of, the American people will see what is really going on.
You just referred to a mentally ill viewer who accused me of a sex crime 20 years ago. And of course, it was not true. I'd never met the person. But I do agree with you that being accused falsely is one of the worst things that can happen. And you do see it a lot. Let's go back to the investigation.
Oh, yeah, Tucker, no way Tucker Carlson is happy that Matt Gaetz brought that up. I mean, imagine doing that. Imagine. And as gutsy as that was for Matt Gaetz to do, it's not even the craziest thing that happens in this interview. By far, the most insane, out of this world thing that happens in this interview is this. So Matt Gaetz is telling Tucker Carlson more about this story and the woman involved, and he brings up a dinner that he had with Tucker Carlson. And he attempts to implicate Tucker Carlson into this whole ordeal. Matt Gaetz tries to basically use Tucker Carlson as an alibi and forces it upon Tucker on the spot on his live Fox News television show. Let us play this absolutely bonkers clip.
Again, I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me, providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime. And I'm just troubled that the lack of any sort of legitimate investigation into me would then convert into this extortion attempt.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly. But
Let me explain what just happened at the very end of that clip there. Tucker Carlson basically said, "What the hell, man? I'm not getting involved in this. Don't you do that to me. I'm going to deny having any recollection of what you just described." Also, I want to point out Matt Gaetz's very, very, very careful wording there, where he says there's nothing improper about providing hotel accommodations for someone of legal age. Now, legal age where? Specifically, what age are you talking about? What's the legal age we're describing here, Matt Gaetz? I feel like you're leaving something out. And the interview concluded, and if you thought that was everything, you'd be wrong. Because, listen, if there's one thing you definitely do after having a member of Congress on your show to set the record straight after being implicated in a scandal, the one thing you do is have for sure, when everything goes well, is have a post-interview moment where you talk to camera and basically add some additional commentary to that interview that just happened. And you definitely say this.
if you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted. That story just appeared in the news a couple of hours ago. And on the certainty that there's always more than you read in the newspaper, we immediately called Matt Gaetz and asked him to come on and tell us more, which, as you saw, he did. I don't think that clarified much, but it certainly showed this is a deeply interesting story, and we'll be following it.
Oh,
don't quite understand it.
Yeah, I don't quite understand it either, buddy. I concur. I don't think you'll ever really hear me say this, but I will say it today. I agree with Tucker Carlson. That is certainly one of the weirdest interviews I have ever seen. Let us. Before I move on, too, I just want to say. So here you have a member of Congress, an elected official, being implicated in a sexual sex involved, allegedly sex or some sort of sexual involvement, some sort of improperness with a teenager, someone under, I don't know if they're, I don't know the legalities here, but someone who's clearly not over the age of 18 by even Matt Gaetz's own wording, the careful wording he used. You think this would be setting off the alarms with the QAnon believers who have been going on for years now that Donald Trump is fighting the cabal of satanic, cannibalistic, sex trafficking runners all over the world, within the Democratic Party, the Hollywood elites, all over. You think they'd be jumping through hoops here? Over the moon here, I should say. Finally, it looks like what they believed somewhat is coming to fruition, and that we got them. We got one of them. But no. Now this is where I'll say they're jumping through hoops, because this is where it's accurate. they're jumping through hoops actually to try to make sense of this without blaming Matt Gaetz. And not exactly a QAnon guy, although he did bring up a defense of Gaetz on Twitter, where he basically brought up baby eating and baby killing and adrenochrome, which are all QAnon specialties. But here is Nick Fuentes, Groiper Supreme. And here's what he is saying about this whole situation where Matt Gaetz allegedly was improper with a 17-year-old.
Too, the whole age of consent thing is really a feminist social construct. I'll just put that out there.
We're going to go with the age of consent talking point. Let's do it, Fuentes. Let's hear it rip, because let me tell you, there's never a scenario where this works out in the favor of the person arguing this talking point. Go ahead, though.
Because what are we really talking about here? Why are people so upset if somebody is 17 rather than 18? Well, that's because in the state of Florida, the age of consent is 18. It just so happens that the age of consent in Illinois is 17. And in other states, it's 16. And it varies from country to country and state to state. But if the age of consent...
Right, that's how laws work, right? I mean, for example, in New York, we just legalized weed. Just happened. But however, there are the majority of states in the U.S. do not have legalized weed. So while you can smoke it here, it would be illegal to smoke it elsewhere. And I don't agree with that particular law. I think it should be legalized federally for all 50 states. But, that's just how laws work. I mean, you are the right winger, right? You're the one who believes in states' rights, right? I mean, and when you believe in states' rights, you believe that states have the ability to make their own laws and they shouldn't have to deal with the federal government, Big Brother, right? Telling them what to do. You don't want the federal government stepping in and saying that the age of consent in all 50 states should be 16, 17, 18, right? You want the states to decide, because that's what happens now. And when that happens, this is what you get. But let's continue with your brilliant age of consent debate. Let's go there. Keep going, buddy.
18 in Florida, then it is the worst thing possible that you're, dating somebody that's a year younger, right? End of the world. I will say that, let's think about what's really going on here. Age of consent means the age at which an adult can consent. Do we really believe that you have to be 18 years old in order to consent to sex? Otherwise, it's rape? Are we really supposed to believe that people, adults, grown adults who are past the point of puberty engage in a relationship and that becomes a rape?
Past the point of puberty. Now I have a question for you, Mr. Fuentes. What are you trying to argue for here? Are you saying that when someone hits puberty, they should be able to consent to sex with whoever they so choose, no matter how old the partner is in that sexual act? Because people go through puberty at all different ages. I mean, I recall talking to various friends who are women throughout my life who told me they hit puberty at ages as early as, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Are you saying that once they hit puberty, they should have been allowed to consent to having sex with a 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old? Is this the argument you want to make? Because that's the one you're making. Let's see what else you have to say there. I think this is a terrible idea, but I mean, I think there's a good argument at saying that, if you're 18, you consent to having sex with someone who's 20, 30, 40. You can think that's weird, but I say, if you're a legal adult, you are legally able to make these decisions. But, 16, 17, you are not a legal adult. You can't even buy a pack of cigarettes. Let's continue, Nick. What are you doing here, buddy? I mean,
To me, what I think age of consent is about is
do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? But to you, what is age consent about? Go ahead.
really, and I've said this before on the show, it's not a new take. I think what it's really about is artificially increasing the sexual marketplace value of older women. I think that's really what it's about.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm gagging here. So what you're saying is, I mean, you're basically saying that the most attractive women out there are under the age of 18. I mean, that's the argument you're literally making there, Nick. You are saying that my white supremacist Groiper non-friend. This is what you're doing. You're the one who's talking about. You're the one who just went on Twitter. I can't pull up the tweet because he just got a temporary suspension from Twitter. But you're the one who is basically saying, shouldn't we be focusing on the Democrats trafficking babies and extracting the adrenochrome out of them, right? Here's the thing, though, Nick. This is the weird thing overall, actually. These QAnon guys and these right-wingers obsessed with these fictional sex trafficking cases when there's actually real sex trafficking going out there. But the real sex trafficking going on out there don't really fit the description of what they believe sex trafficking is. And as you can see, they think there's some sort of epidemic of literal babies, like I don't know how old, months old babies, year-old, 2-year-old babies out there being sex trafficked. And while I'm sure that happens and it's horrible, when we talk sex trafficking, we are usually, because this is what it mostly is about, we are usually referring to teenagers, young or preteens, like, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls who are either on the streets, literally selling themselves. We are talking about homeless LGBT youth who were kicked out of their homes, again, usually trying to make money and provide food and shelter for themselves, so they have to sell themselves. We are, in some cases, talking about young people who are brought into a sex trafficking where they do have some sort of pimp and they are being held, and that does happen too. But like these guys literally think the main thing is like literal babies are being stolen. It's like this isn't like you guys really think that the 15, 16-year-olds having sex with I don't know how old Matt Gaetz is, 30, 40 years old. You think that's okay? A 16-year-old having sex with Matt Gaetz is okay? I mean, allegedly, if that's the scenario, I'm using a hypothetical in this particular scenario. I question your commitment to saving the children, to be quite honest. I'm really questioning the right commitment to saving the children right now. Oh, but someone in the chat just mentioned, didn't Nick Fuentes one of these guys who whined about Cuties, that Netflix movie too? Right. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Gonna argue the age of consent laws. Ugh. And it should really be mentioned too that this argument that he was also making, it's like, yeah, if you're 15, 16 and you are having relations with another 15, 16-year-old or even a 17-year-old or whatever, or 14-year-old, you're within that age range, you're in high school with somebody. I mean, yeah, I guess you could, I'm not in there anymore. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not a high school student anymore. I haven't dated someone in that age range since I was in that age range myself. So, we're not talking about that. we're talking about 15 and 16-year-olds basically finding themselves in a relationship with a grown man, 30, 40, 50 years old. That to me is improper. Nick Fuentes clearly feels different, but I am not cool with that. Sorry, Nick. Jeez. I mean, it's not surprising, but at the same time, God, you're really gonna make that you're really going there? That's the hill you're gonna die on? That's the hill you're gonna die on? Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Oh, oh my God. I need anyone want to call into the show? Oh, I signed out of the Skype. I have another set of clips I want to get to, but I don't know if I could. I need a second here. I'm like, honestly, that Fuentes clip really got to me. I'm really disturbed by it, honestly. I actually knew about the clip. I read the description of the clip. And I did not watch it though, because I had a feeling it would be fun to have that reaction. You get my reaction, a good old YouTube reaction clip. But I wasn't ready for it. Hey, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hey, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm John, calling from Peoria.
Hey, John, thanks for calling in. I noticed you have the good old video chat open on Skype. Do you mind if I bring your video feed into the YouTube live stream?
No, it's fine.
Okay, cool. I'm going to bring you in right now. Hey, John, what would you like to talk about today? First of all, thanks for calling in when I needed a minute to basically come down from that clip and get my mind straight. I really am out of it now. That clip was something else. But what would you like to talk about?
So I was going to call in about something else, but that video clip was pretty interesting because it brought to mind that I'm pretty old, as you can probably tell, that basically, like, this is not like a new argument, that oh, well, there's an age of consent here, there's an age of consent there, in this state, that country. I just think it's pretty funny. I mean, is he really going down that road? Because sure, I live in the state of Illinois. The age of consent here is 17.
He said 16 for Illinois, if I recall. So he's incorrect then, if that's the case.
I believe it's 17. I was in law enforcement.
I can't believe I'm looking this up, but my Google search, man. I'm gonna get I'm gonna get caught up in a Matt Gaetz-esque scandal due to my internet search here. Illinois age of consent. It is 17, so Fuentes is wrong.
So yeah, I mean, that's what I remember back when I was actually having to enforce laws back in the 80s. But a lot, like as you point out, a lot of these age of consent laws have built into them. You have relationships, sexual relationships between kids or adults or adolescents that are around 17 years old. And then there's, a couple years difference, and the other person might be 18, 19, so just beyond the age of consent, while the other person's 17. And I know in Illinois, we kind of protect that relationship. We don't go after people that are in that kind of a relationship. But if there's someone in their mid 30s, there's a little bit of a different issue here, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. We were talking about. I believe they call them Romeo and Juliet laws.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm looking it up now. Florida has Romeo. In Florida, the age of consent is 18, which is why Matt Gaetz is in trouble. It's 18. However, there is a close in age exemption, the Romeo and Juliet law. Minors who are 16 or 17 can have relations with someone no older than 23. So there is quite the the leeway there for I would guess is an acceptable age range. I would say, if you are a freshman or in high school and you're going out with a junior or a senior in high school, I don't think the older partner should get in trouble for that. And I guess in this case, if you are a junior or senior in high school and you're having relations with someone who's in college, that seems fair too, because you could have met them in high school. I do recall there were some very sad stories out there of like people in their early 20s who had like who were dating someone who was like 16 or 17. The younger person's parents did not accept the relationship, called the police, got the older individual in trouble, and this poor 21-year-old who was dating their 17-year-old friend is now stuck with like they're stuck as a sex offender for the rest of their life. Right. That is truly.
That was often due to like prosecutors being very aggressive and overly aggressive, in my opinion.
Right, and I totally understand how horrible that is, but right. That's not at all. That should be. That's why I'm glad there's
here. Yeah, or allegedly happening here.
Matt Gaetz is 38 years old. He's going to be 39 next month. That 17-year-old. That's not. This is a 22-year difference.
So the other point I want to make though is like if he wants to like compare Illinois law to Florida law, and then just by extrapolation, what? Why don't we compare Japanese law? The Japanese law, the age of consent is 12. So I mean, I don't think that we should be probably, especially if you're a legislator, a federal legislator, that you should be unaware of your state's laws about the age of consent. We do not apply other areas of other laws of this country or other countries to the state of Florida. So there's that. I mean, if you just want to start saying, well, it's arbitrary, I mean, like I say, this is not a new argument. I think on the Art of Noise album, one of them that they had listed all the age of consents back in the like 90s or 80s, I think. So that I think is a really kind of stupid argument. The other thing I just want to point out is the feds wouldn't be getting involved just with an age of consent law within the state of Florida. They are probably looking at charges under the Mann Act, which is bringing someone who is under the age of consent across state lines, probably to D.C. And that's why they're getting involved, because you're not supposed. That was a law that was brought about to go after the boxer. Was it Jack Johnson? I can't remember his name. He was African American back in the 1910s. But it's still a law, and now we have Matt Gaetz that is going to be probably charged with. Well, I don't know. That is allegedly in violation of this federal law. So I think that's another thing that's not really talked about too much.
Right. Someone in the chat is saying you're wrong about the age of consent in Japan. They're saying it's 18. I will say I looked it up. You're closer than this person is. I'm seeing that the age of consent in Japan is 13. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where this person sees 18. They're really upset
There's
about it.
there's like regional laws that also apply in Japan, but under the law that I understood, that I had looked up at the time, it was 12. If it's 13 that you're seeing, you know.
Right. I'm even seeing a news story from November 2020, so just a few months ago, where students were submitting petitions to age the age of consent in Japan because obviously it's ridiculously low, from 13
Right.
to 16. So I mean, I don't. So yeah, okay. Someone
I mean,
Green Jacket says 13 is national minimum, but most prefectures have it at 17.
right.
Right. I mean,
So,
right.
but my point is, this is a dumb argument. This is
It is dumb.
especially for
Right.
someone who's being aware of the law. And
Right.
Korea, I mean, there was a movie made, I think it was The Green Room in Korea. I think the age of consent at the time was 21. So
Right.
should we be doing Korea's age of consent? If this is not, he knows the law. That is, Mr. Gates knows the law in Florida, or should. He goes and makes bills. So that's my point.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, he Gates is really. Oh, I just literally as I was talking to you, I just got a pop up, an email, with an update about the Gates case. Gates showed lawmakers. Oh, I saw this earlier. Gates showed lawmakers nude photos. Oh, let me read this. Let me let you off the I can't believe this is going on. Let me let you off the line here so I could read this story. Thank
Sure.
you so much for calling in when you did. I needed a reset to get my brain back in the mode here.
All right.
Take
Thank you.
care.
You too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close up the calls for today. That's it with the callers for today. So what's this headline? Gates showed nude photos. Oh, let me get myself up. Okay. Gates showed nude photos of women he said he slept with to lawmakers. What? Behind the scenes, Gates gained a reputation in Congress over his relationships with women and bragging about his sexual escapades to his colleagues, multiple sources told CNN. Gates allegedly showed off... Whoops, I got some sort of... Oh, come on, CNN. They have some weird ad playing. Luckily, I had my sound off, so you guys didn't hear it. But I heard it, and it distracted me. Gates allegedly showed off to other lawmakers photos and videos of nude women he said he had slept with, including while on the House floor. Sources, including two people directly shown the material, said Gates displayed the images of women on his phone and talked about having sex with them. One of the videos showed a naked woman with a hula hoop. What in the world? What a weirdo. What a weirdo. I mean, I know there are guys who do those sort of things, and they're fucking weirdos too. But what an extra weirdo to do that shit in Congress. Like, on the House floor. Like, just bizarre. Sparrow says, is Gates married? LMAO. He's not married, but his Twitter bio says he's a fiance. Which, again, what a weirdo. Who puts that in your Twitter bio that you're a fiance? What a loser. Who the hell does that? I mean, I think the people who put that they're a husband in their Twitter bio, in their social media bio, period, is weird. But the fiance thing is like a step further into absolute bizarro world. What an absolute cornball. Fiance. What a weirdo. My God. I gotta get more sound effects. Man, I had more clips to get to, but I don't know if I could. Yeah, I'll do these clips. Let me read the super chats, and then I'll get to these clips. All right, let's see. Ramona Eyes. I don't remember if I read your $10 super chat, so I got to make sure I read it. Happy 10 years on Majority Report. Your contributions have been and continue to be invaluable. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you, Ramona. Counting Amber Jacks with a $10 super chat. Congratulations on your MR anniversary. Left is best. Thank you, Counting Amber Jacks. Who else? Renee, this must be parody. You were called a perv too, Tucker. You were even wearing a bow tie, right? That's a good one, Renee. If there's any more super chats that want to get in at the end, I'll be sure to read them. This is your opportunity to get in on this episode, super chats. I'm gonna do this story now, though. I talked about these on the Majority Report earlier when I was on with Emma and Matt Leck on my 10-year anniversary Thursday. So these are, if you watched earlier today, the fun half of the Majority Report, you've seen these clips already, and you've probably heard me make these points. But I wanted to make sure that the people who did not catch that also saw these clips and heard my points. So let me just see which one I want to play first. All right, let's do this one. So you guys might have heard about these draconian voting laws that just passed in Georgia. Georgia lawmakers wrote this bill, passed it, went to the governor, he signed it, and it basically does a number of things to make voting in Georgia harder. Because, as you saw in 2020, Georgia may very well now be a blue state. I mean, for 2020, it was a blue state. It was what probably was the ultimate upset out of all of the results of the 2020 presidential election. Georgia went blue and voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. And then to further dig into Republicans, they went from having 2 U.S. senators from Georgia who were Republican to now having 2 U.S. senators from Georgia who are Democrats. So all around, Georgia is completely blue right now. Not at the state level, but at the federal level, it is. So obviously, when that happens, you don't go out and hit the streets and work hard to get more people to vote for you and your policies and your ideas and your ideology. If you're a Republican, you try to make it harder for black people to vote, for Democrats to vote, and you try to restrict the vote. And one of the most absurd parts of this law is the fact that it is now illegal in Georgia for someone like a volunteer to go give someone something as simple as a cup, a glass, a bottle of water while they're waiting online to vote. Now remember, in a lot of states, a voter could be waiting online for hours. Like we're not talking like an hour, 2 hours. We're talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. More sometimes, I'm sure, just to vote. And Republicans in Georgia made doing the simple act of providing them with a bottle of water illegal, because according to them, that could be considered bribing them for a vote. Well, Fox and Friends wants to defend this absurd law that was passed in Georgia, while the majority of people really do seem to be outraged by this. But, Fox and Friends has their wonderful take defending it. Here that take is.
The water argument is what cracks me up, though, because what line have you ever stood in? If you go to Yankee Stadium and you stand in line to get a ticket, do they serve you water? Do you care?
Just hot towels. That's all I get.
I have been voting for over 40 years.
I've never had water.
And I have never thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go vote today. Will they have snacks?
Right, absolutely.
I'm not worried about
exactly.
Snacks.
I know.
No water.
Right. Well, number one, you're probably not worried about that, Mr. Ducey. because you aren't black. You're not in a rural area. I'm assuming, being that you work at Fox and Friends, you work in the good old Fox News Corp building in the heart of New York in Times Square, and you're probably not in an area where you have to wait very long to vote. For people living in different areas of the country, they're waiting in line for a very long time to vote, and they probably are standing there saying, shit, I'm getting really dehydrated, I'm really thirsty, I'm really hungry, I'm not really feeling so well. This might not be worth it to stand on line. I gotta go home. I need to lose my place in line. I need to go to the deli, get a drink. I need to hop in my car and drive to a restaurant and get a bite to eat. I'm just not gonna bother anymore. So there's one thing. But the second thing, and this when we were discussing the majority part earlier, we sort of started talking at first about, the right to vote and how voting is not the equivalent to their, is much more important than what they were saying about standing in line at the for snacks at Yankee Stadium. But like I mentioned on the show, on majority part earlier, I think we're falling into their trap by even having that conversation, because their analogy is faulted from the very start. Their analogy is faulted because what they did in Georgia was they didn't stop an ongoing program, like some sort of federally funded program to provide water to voters standing in line in the state on election day. There's not like some funded system that they pulled funding from, or like some workers who were hired to hand out water whose jobs were made obsolete. That's not what we're talking about here. If someone saw you standing on the line at Yankee Stadium for a hot dog and you were thirsty, they could voluntarily still go give you a cup of water while you're waiting in that line for your hot dog. It's still legal to do that if you're waiting online at a baseball stadium. The absurd thing is that this law has made it illegal for a Good Samaritan, a volunteer, to just on their own accord bring someone waiting to vote a glass, bottle, cup of water. Like, their argument is so ridiculous because it's not analogous. There is no law saying you can't give me a bottle of water if I'm waiting online at Yankee Stadium for some Cracker Jacks. There is a law in Georgia saying you will be in trouble legally if you give me a glass, cup, bottle of water while I'm waiting in line to vote. You, not very bright people on Fox and Friends. And another person who has a great take on all of this is Ben Shapiro. The conservative intellectual has some very smart ideas when it comes to the Georgia law banning individuals from voluntarily giving someone a drink of water while they wait in line to vote. Much smarter take than what Brian Kilmeade or the girl on Fox and Friends has to say, I'm sure, right? He's got to be. He's the smart one, isn't he? Let's hear what Ben Shapiro, where is this clip? What Ben Shapiro, did I not grab the Ben Shapiro clip? Oh, come on. I didn't grab the Ben. Oh, here it is. Okay, let's hear what Ben Shapiro has to say. Let me fast forward it to the really ridiculous part.
Boxes where people could just stuff the ballot box or take ballots out of the ballot box? It hands state officials more power over local elections. Even before the legislation passed, many voters of color in Georgia faced hours-long queues at the polls. By the way, voter suppression doesn't involve long lines.
Let me go back to the beginning of this clip. Let me address all this stuff.
Jim Crow explicitly created a separate system of law for black Americans and treated them as inferior. There's nothing in the law like that. That's not only an overstatement, it's just an outright lie. But, says Jamel Hill, all of corporate America should resonate to the lie. The law imposes new voter identification requirements for absentee ballots. Well, clearly that's racist. I mean, you mean you have to show that you are who you say you are when you vote absentee?
I mean, it is because it's actually extremely hard for certain people who live in certain areas to get voter IDs. I mean, if you are someone who doesn't drive, for example, you don't have a driver's license, you need to go out and get a voter ID. If you are an elderly woman or man living in a rural area, and how are you going to go to a government building to get an ID? It's going to take time you may not have, ability to get there, which you may not have. I mean, this isn't something that's out of the ordinary. And the fact is that a lot of Black Americans have issues getting voter ID. I mean, government ID.
If you can explain to me how that's racist, I'm willing to hear it.
I
Anyone?
told you.
Bueller?
If I was there in the room, I could have
It
told
limits
you.
the use of ballot drop boxes.
I would have told you.
Oh, you mean like ballot drop boxes where people could just stuff the ballot box or take ballots out of the ballot box?
That doesn't happen. I mean, you're acting like that's something that usually happens, but you're talking about a hypothetical scenario. You're talking about a what if. That if it has happened, the number of cases where it has happened is so minuscule that it's not even like one of the main worries of voting and things that could possibly happen concerning voting. I mean, you're just looking for random shit to complain about here.
It hands state officials more power over local elections. Even before the legislation passed, many voters of color in Georgia faced hours-long queues at the polls. By the way, voter suppression doesn't involve long lines.
It does, because if there's lines, the lines are purposefully long in certain areas. For example, areas in the country where the demographics are majority Black people. Where a rural area where, say, there's only one place to vote within like a who knows, 50, 100-mile radius. Who knows? I'm using an example here. That's purposeful. And when you are making it difficult for people to vote, that's voter suppression, because some people will want to vote but just can't wait around because they have jobs or they have things to get to, or I don't know, say they're getting thirsty and it's illegal in your state to give someone who's waiting in line to vote a bottle of water to drink. You know, they'll leave the line. You know, that's what happens, and that's voter suppression, buddy.
Any more than long lines at Disneyland are ride suppression. You know what voter suppression is? Voter suppression is where you don't get to vote.
That's what happens.
Making those waits even more arduous, the new law bans giving food and water to people in line to vote. That's not even true. It bans giving any gift to people in line when they are within 150 feet of the polling place. You can bring water with you. There are people outside who can give you water. This is just not true.
No. It is true. Like the bringing water. Yeah, if you bring water, that's fine. But you don't know how long you're going to be waiting at the poll. You bring a bottle of water, you drink it. You're still there for another 4, 5, 6 hours. You're still thirsty again. If a volunteer gives you water, they can be charged with giving you a gift to sway your vote. And let's get to the absurd point, the Fox and Friends point here, the analogy with the Yankee Stadium that the Fox and Friends folks made. Here, Ben Shapiro makes the analogy with waiting in line at Disneyland. Well, my friend, I have some bad news for you. Included with your admission to Disneyland, when you go there, you have the ability to actually skip those lines. You don't have to wait, because you are able to go to your phone. There's an app, log into the Disney World or Disneyland app, and you can, they call this service Fast Pass. You can book a time on a ride. And then when it hits that specific time that you booked, you go to that ride and you can go past the entire line, and you're basically fast-tracked to the front of the line, and you get to go right on whatever ride it is. So, Ben Shapiro, if you're advocating for some sort of system where voters can actually book a time slot and go in and just go vote at that time without waiting online, I think that's possibly a very good idea. If you're advocating for that, which I highly doubt you're purposely advocating for, but if that's what you're advocating for, man, anything that makes it easier for people to vote, I'm all for. And if the voting rights experts say that that's something that would crack down on voter suppression and help more people vote, let's do that. I'm all for a fast pass for voting. Sign me up. You guys like my Mickey Mouse laugh right there? All right, let's wrap it up today, guys. Any more super? Ooh, what did I just do? I hit something I wasn't supposed to. Ooh, did I just? No. Okay, all good. Let's go to the super chats. Oh, we got a few more patrons. I will read these people again the next show, but I'm gonna start like I've been doing. Shout out the patrons live as they come in. The following people became patrons during the program. And they'll get shout out right now, and they'll get a shout out next week. And everyone else who becomes a patron right now will get shout out now. And everyone else who gets becomes a patron between this show and the next show will get shouted out of the next show as well. Martin, thank you for becoming a patron. Peter R, thank you for becoming a patron. Darian M, thank you so much for becoming a patron. Truly, truly, truly cannot thank you guys enough for your support. It really means the world to me. At this rate, maybe by the end of the year, I'll have double the patrons I have now, and things will really get going. I think things really are getting going now, but I mean, there's a point when we hit on the Patreon where I will be able to ramp up shit exponentially because I'll be able to hire help and not have to depend on the one kind soul who volunteered to help me cut some clips. I'll be able to really ramp up the amount of content I put out. We're getting there. And it's people like Martin, Peter, and Darian who will get me there. And there's people like Renee and Kowalski who just dropped super chats who helped me get there. Renee with a super chat. I am a South American fascist, and I wanted to call in to defend Prima Noctum, aka Droit du Seigneur. Renee is obviously being facetious and sarcastic, but I actually don't know really who he's talking about. And Renee will probably have to come on the show soon to give us another lowdown of what's going on in the right-wing sphere in South America. Kowalski with a $4 super chat. Hope you're enjoying your Maundy Thursday. I am, Kowalski. Thank you. Tronin says, have you had a chance to watch any of the HBO documentary miniseries about Q? Been pretty good so far. I have not. I've not had a chance. I'll definitely watch it. Again, a little bit miffed they didn't ask me. What can you do? I could have given him some insight, some interview. Could have given him some footage, but yeah, that's all right. That's all right. It's all right. No, I'm gonna watch it for sure. It looks like it's good. I think that's the show, guys. I think this was an action-packed show. We had a great interview to kick things off, multiple segments, clips, plenty of stuff for my favorite person right now, who is my kind volunteer, putting time into helping me get some clips. Plenty of stuff for him to be able to pull. Plenty of material to upload throughout the week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already, youtube.com/MattBinder. Subscribe to the iTunes, the podcast, wherever, doomedpod.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Follow me at Matt Binder on Twitter, Instagram. Oh, I posted twice on Instagram today. That's a roll for me. So if you're not following me on Instagram, you might be missing out soon. In fact, I posted a short clip from one of my appearances on the Majority Report, like a short Instagram sized clip. You should check that out. What else? My pop saying hi to Kowalski. Oh man, yesterday my dad and I helped my sister move, and we are exhausted. I'm sure. I'm surprised I'm so awake. Luckily, I'm not tired today in terms of like being able to do the show, but like physically, like my body aches from that move. But I'm thinking tomorrow, which by the time the podcast comes out, it might not be tomorrow. It might have already happened. But if you're watching live, Friday, April 2nd, I am thinking, catch me on Twitter at Matt Binder for the final say. I'm thinking tomorrow evening, I'm going to do the first video game stream. Join me. I'll probably be playing either Fortnite or Fall Guys. Probably Fall Guys. The new season of Fall Guys that just came out last week. Season 4. Join me for that. It'll be a lot of fun. Good like Friday night, like, decompress. I'm sure I'll be dropping political stuff while I'm playing, but, not really focused 100% on the horribleness of the world and what, and the political state of things. And happy Passover to everyone who celebrates. Today is Holy Thursday, along with April Fools. I don't do April Fools. Not a fan of it. It hasn't been a good April Fools in a long time because all these companies and internet pranks ruined it. I like well thought out pranks, not the corny shit you see on like YouTube and like every single tech company doing. What else? Happy Easter to everyone who celebrates, especially to Jesus, who obviously Easter's a big day for him. The 2 more super chats just came in. Jason with a super chat. Better city for punk rock, New York or London? I love New York, but I don't know much about London. I love New York, but I will say New York is what's that song again? The title of that song, I love you, New York, but you're bringing me down. That's how I feel all the time. New York is New York, where I'm born, where I'm raised. I'll probably always live here. My entire worldview is probably shaped by living in Queens, New York. But the punk scene has died in New York, sadly. It's really disappointing, and we're losing major venues. We're losing clubs. There's big like arenas and like big like Live Nation owned venues. We got Madison Square Garden, Barclays Center, Gramercy Theater, Irving Plaza. All these big corporate owned entities, venues, I should say. But, the venues for the young upcoming bands, the non-signed band, the independent artists, those are few and far between now, sadly. Also, it's hard. It costs money to live in New York, man. Lots of money to live in New York. Even now with COVID, prices have dropped in some areas, but not enough. Lower East Side used to be like, you could live there as an artist, and you can't really anymore. I mean, I don't want to get into the New York thing right now. Maybe one day we'll do an episode on it, or we'll talk more. Not really an end of the show thing. Peasant Chick with a super chat. Happy Easter with a baby chick cracking out of an egg emoji. Thank you, Peasant Chick. Kit Kat with a $5 super chat. Nothing to say, just wanted to drop some dough. Thank you, Kit Kat. Kowalski says, had April Fool's bit for MR, but didn't get it in. Kowalski, do you want to get it in right now? I can't believe I'm going to do this. Kowalski, is there, require a call-in, Kowalski? Mojo Mine on Twitch says, Save Our Stages, National Independent Venues Act. Yeah, there's definitely, different things that have been put into plan to basically help small independent venues. But the fact of the matter is that this is something that's happened well before COVID. And a lot of these venues are long gone well before this happened. And COVID's basically going to put the nail in the coffin for some venues. We just had a major staple in New York announced today that they're closing. Pyramid Club closed. Yeah. Detective Faja says, thank you, NYC Tourism Director Matt Binder. Man, I live here all 34 years, man. I know a thing or two about New York City. Kowalski says, no, it won't work because you know it is coming, but appreciate the offer. And the last super chat of the day is Champagne Kami with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Champagne Kami. Really appreciate the support. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for today. I will see you all next time on Doomed.